that, all right? I told you, and you believe not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. And that's what John was telling us. That's what he's saying. Here's the sign that he does a miracle. Don't be impressed with the miracle as much as you are who the miracle is, Jesus. And he said, proves him. The signs I've done, through the miracles I've done, through the wonders I've done, and I've told you I'm the Son of God, which in their culture makes him equal with his Father. All right? So here's the thing. Well, next screen. Let's go to, I and my Father are one. Okay? That makes me the Messiah. You got to think, all right? But that makes me the Messiah. Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. I mean, now they surrounded him. Are you the Messiah or not? I and my Father are one. Yes, I told you. My works prove it, you know. And now when he says, I and my Father are one, now they're picking up stones. At which point the disciples were like, okay, let's back up, because not everybody's an accurate throw. You know, we don't want to get hit, but okay, I don't know if that's what they said or not, but I would. If I'm standing next to Jesus and they pick up stones, I'd be like, see, I'm going to go check out. Where's the bathroom? You know, right? Because they're about to stone him. Jesus answered them, many good works have I showed you from my Father. Which of these do you stone me? See, the things he did were so obvious of who he is. But there's this thing, and we talked about it 2 weeks ago. There's this thing called willful blindness. They're willfully blind. Because if they open their eyes and they realize, yeah, nobody can open the eyes of the blind. Nobody can cause the lame to walk. Nobody can do all these stuff except God be with them. I mean, these things are pointing to who Jesus is. They're just being willfully blind. And let me say this, okay? This is the problem today. And maybe you have a touch of this. Maybe you know somebody who's just so adamant, they don't necessarily deny there's a God, but they don't care, they don't want to know. That's the key. They don't want to know any more about God because it might require something of them. That's willfully blind. I don't want to know what God expects of me. I might have to change my life. What they're saying is, you know what? We don't want to know if you're the Messiah or not. We don't want you to be the Messiah because if you are, you know, we've got this whole thing. You've pointed out how wrong we were. You pointed out, you know, we're all about keeping the law. We get paid to keep the law. We get paid to tell you you're not keeping the law. We get paid to make you feel, you know, like scum. Because we are so good. Wait a minute. Jesus is saying, you guys, you search the world over to make one proselyte. You convert one person over. And you make him threefold more the child of the devil. You just got it wrong. You're just worshiping works. They were willfully blind because if Jesus is the Messiah, we have to give up our power. We have to give up our life. We got to give up our cushy job. You can't be the Messiah. In fact, they went out of their way to try and disqualify him as the Messiah. He keeps breaking the Sabbath, the Messiah. Oh yeah, he just healed a blind man. He just healed a lame man. But he can't possibly be the Messiah because he broke the Sabbath. And it was their version of a Sabbath. It was the oral law. It wasn't even the written law. And Jesus says, wait a minute, guys. The Sabbath was made for man. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. It was for them to focus and rest. Not that you can't, you know, you will pull your ox out of a ditch, but you're going to stone me because I healed somebody on the Sabbath. When you look at John's miracles, he did most of them on the Sabbath just to tick them off. I think that's hilarious. They were willfully blind, and it's a problem to this day. The people that I fear will end up in hell are willfully blind. Oh, you know what, Jay, I remember you in high school. Now you telling me you're a preacher? Sure, right, but I don't, that's all a joke. Willfully blind. They don't want to have to change their life. So, all right, let's get going. All right, next screen. All right, therefore, they sought again to take him, but he escaped out of their hands. All right? They sought again to take him. So they surrounded him, and they're getting ready to stone him. I'm sure the disciples are backing up, saying, this is why we don't like coming to Jerusalem, And they backing up, and so they were getting ready to stone him, and then all of a sudden, he got away. And he went again beyond Jordan. This is kind of important, okay? He went again beyond Jordan to a place where John at first baptized, and there he abode. He didn't go all the way back up to Galilee, way up north, all right? He went about a day and a half's journey up the Jordan to where John baptized. Very famous place. Everybody knows where John baptized. John's been beheaded, all right? John's gone, so, it didn't there's no room for him. John's not there. All right, so that's where he went. He went up there about a day north of Jerusalem. All right, next screen. It said, now a certain man was sick. His name was Lazarus of Bethany. Very close, okay? About a day's journey, okay? And the town of Mary and her sister Martha. This is a parenthetical phrase. You could leave it out of the story, but John interjects here, all right? It says, it was that Mary which anointed the Lord with the ointment and wiped her feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Okay, very famous trio of siblings, right? They even perhaps helped finance Jesus' ministry if they needed anything. They evidently had some means about them, but you find them popping up in Jesus' ministry story all the time, and Jesus had a special relationship with them. All right, so therefore his sisters sent, this is Mary and Martha, sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. I mean, he's so close to this family, didn't even need to use the name. It was just like the guy, that family you love, that guy you love, he's sick. All right. Now, this comes with some expectation. The sisters sent for the Lord, the Messiah, whom they've seen him do signs, miracles, and they need one themselves right now. All right? Next screen, verse 4, and it says, and when Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death. Remember I said that new category where pain can be gain if you turn it over to God? We don't know how, whether it's going to be a gain in this life or a gain in the next life, but it's going to accomplish something, all right? It accomplishes something that glorifies God. And it says, but for the glory of God. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of Man might be glorified thereby. This entire thing has a purpose. So right now you're thinking, you know what, I'm going through something really hard. And maybe it's a health issue. Maybe it's a relationship issue. Maybe it's a financial issue. But you're going through something. We all go through stuff. And you can't imagine how God could get glory from your pain. But honestly, whether it is able to glorify in this life or the next life, but God can work all things together for good to them that love the Lord. He will interject himself into your pain. Watch this, all right? Verse number 5, and it says, now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So, again, John interjects here. John, I was there. I remember this. I remember when it happened. I remember we were where John was baptizing. We were hanging out. We just escaped from the Pharisees. The Pharisees tried to stone Jesus. He escaped. He got out there. We went a day and a half north. And then I remember when the messengers came and they delivered the message that Lazarus was sick. And can I have you add up some things while I'm preaching, if you will kind of keep in mind the timetable, okay? By the time the messengers got to Jesus that Lazarus was sick, Lazarus would have already died. So he probably was dead before Jesus even got the message. But Jesus does something bizarre, okay? Look at this. It says here, in verse 6, now Jesus loved Mary and Martha, but when he heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. So he leaves Jerusalem, about gets stoned, escapes out of their hand. If you read the entire end of chapter 10, you'll find where a lot of people followed him there. So I don't know, they got a little thing going there, a little conference, Bible conference, Torah conference, I guess you'd call it. I don't know. But Old Testament, well, it's not their Old Testament. But anyway, I don't know what they're doing. He's preaching, he's teaching, he's got all these things. Lazarus is sick. Now this is a family. Jesus absolutely loved them. And we expect him to jump up and take off, and he hangs out for 2 more days. Stays there 2 more days. Seemingly, like he doesn't care. But John went out of his way to say, no, he loved this family. They were some of his favorite people on earth. Not that Jesus plays favorite, but he does. But not that I don't know. All right, verse number 7. And then after that, he saith to his disciples, let us go to Jerusalem again, at which point the disciples would say, are you crazy? That would be insane at this time. It's one thing to wait till the next festival. It's one thing to wait a few weeks or a month or so, but we're only talking a couple days here. And so when Jesus said, you know what, I'm not going, I'm going to wait 2 days, Jesus abode in the place 2 days, the disciples were probably thinking, well, yeah, people are trying to kill him, so he can't go, and I'm sorry, Lazarus is sick, and, maybe it's the flu, he'll get better, whatever, So the disciples are like, okay, but after this, then after that saith he to his disciples, let us go again to Judea again. And his disciples said unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and you're going back? It's just, they're dumbfounded. They are absolutely floored. All right, so verse 10, or 9 rather. And Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? This is so typical Jesus. He does this all the time. It's like we're talking about one thing, and then he jumps subjects. How do you reconcile that? Because he's been telling them now for 4 chapters, all right? I am the light of the world. All right, I'm shining the light on God. If you want to, really get, in touch with God, if you want to know God, you want a relationship with God, I'm that light. I'm shining the light on that. In fact, I am the light of the world, okay? So he's been saying that for 4 chapters now, which would equate to a couple years. All right, so Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? Typical Jesus. Change the subject. Wait a minute. It's got something to do with what's going on right now. The disciples are trying to keep up. And if any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of the world. In other words, things are brighter now. Understanding of who I am right now will never be clearer. But I ain't going to be here long. And then it's going to get dark. And the only lightness the world will have is the light that's in you. So, if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. So he's trying to drive home that point that they're really not getting yet. It's about the light of the world. It's about shining a light on who he is, and in them, his light being in them, all right? Then he says, all right, this is an intense conversation, a little bit awkward, but let's go into it, all right? Then he said, these things said he, and after that he saith unto them, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may wake him out of sleep. All right? He's using this as a metaphor, metaphorically speaking. He sleepeth. Then said the disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he does well. Okay, he's sick and he's sleeping. Maybe he'll sleep it off. He'll get better. They're giving Jesus medical advice. Is that ironic or what? All right? So then he says, Lord, if he sleeps, he does well. Howbeit, Jesus spake of his death. But they thought he'd spoken of taking rest and sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. All right, so when he gets it that these people are really dense, I chose a bunch of fishermen, and they're, they're just dense, He's dead. All right, I was trying to be tactful. I didn't want to cause a stir. I didn't want, everybody around that knew Lazarus to freak out, but he's dead. All right, so I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. When you went through that loss, when you lost a loved one, or you lost your health, or you lost a relationship, or did it seem like Jesus wasn't there? It hurts. But Jesus is saying, no, I'm glad I wasn't there because there's a purpose behind this. And I'm glad for your sakes that I wasn't there. I know Mary's going through it. I know Martha's going through it. But for your sake, in other words, your loss, your pain, could actually be helping somebody else who's watching, who's observing, who's seeing how you handle it. So he says this, for your sakes I wasn't there, to the intent that ye may believe. And we're right back to, I'm the light of the world, and I'm about to shine a light on this. That it's going to be so bright, no one can stumble. That in the whole purpose of this thing is so that you believe Jesus is who he says he is. And he says this, nevertheless, let us go into him. This is almost humorous. Okay? Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus. Thomas is Hebrew, and Didymus is Greek, okay? Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellows, let us go that we may die with him. In other words, he's just saying, they're trying to stone you, and you want us to go back, and Lazarus is dead. We might as well this is it. We're just all going to go die. I mean, that's what he is, right? I ain't trying to spiritualize this thing. It's just, all right, if you want to go, we're going to go, and we're all going to die. Verse 17, look what he says. Then, when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs. This is a day's trip. So it's a day and a half. Jesus went a day and a half from Jerusalem up the Jordan where John baptized, okay? Now, to go back, because it's a half-day journey from Bethany to Jerusalem. Got it? So now he's gone back toward Jerusalem one day, and it's a half a day from a walk from Jerusalem. So then Jesus came, found that he'd been in the grave 4 days. So if you add it up, it takes the messengers a day to get to Jesus. Jesus waits 2 days. It takes him a day to walk to the grave, to go to the funeral, which he's missed the funeral. Okay? All right. So now Bethany was nigh to Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs. Many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. This would be one of the clues that probably a well-to-do family, because a lot of people, they heard about it, the Jews from Jerusalem, and they all came to Mary and Martha, who lived a half a day away. They all came to the funeral. And their funerals back then, you just hung out, right? The guy dies, and you hung out. And it's a wake. We would call it a wake. The body would be in the house, and you would just kind of hang out with the dead body, And I've never understood that, never understood wakes, But that's kind of how they did it then. And here's the thing. It was customary to come to a funeral prepared to mourn, to physically cry. That was their culture. That's just the way they did it. You were almost expected to. By the way, the more mourners you had, it was like the more popular you were, the more friends you had. And I wouldn't say it was like a social media thing, but that they kind of judged a person's life on how many mourners. In fact, rich people like publicans, people that were like had a lot of money and no one liked, could hire mourners. Okay? So if no one cared you died, you could pay people to care. Okay? And they would show up and cry for you. Okay. All right. So, anyway, and many of the Jews came to Mary and Martha to comfort them concerning their brother. And then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him. But Mary stayed in the house. Remember, Martha was the busy one. Always, Mary, was not quite like that. Martha was what was Martha? An 8 on the Enneagram, I think. All right. So anyway, if you weren't in on that, never mind. All right. So Martha jumps up and meets Jesus. Doesn't wait for him to come to the house. She jumps up and meets Jesus. All right. Next screen, please. And it says, and when Martha then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, why are you so late? The truth is, he was probably dead before he got the message. Lazarus was probably dead before he got the message. But I find in this some comfort, because I've gone through seasons in my life, I've gone through problems in my life, and when I didn't understand why God wasn't there when I needed him, and this kind of gives us permission to be mad, to not like what God has allowed. She's not being sweet. If you had been here, my brother had not died. Have you ever blamed God for anything? God, you could have stopped this. God, you may not have done it, but you could have done something about it. Then she tries to muster up a little faith. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou ask God, God will give it to you. I mean, she's trying to be spiritual. She's mad. She's upset. She doesn't like what Jesus hung out for 2 more days. He just didn't come. I mean, she knows that he hung out 2 more days. And it says, Jesus said unto her, thy brother shall rise again. And she tries to, okay, I know doctrine. I know about the resurrection. You've taught that. We get it. We're all going to, in the last days, we all rise, right? Martha said, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Which kind of indicates that she's not hinting that you could bring him back to life in verse 22. But it kind of is like, yes, I don't, right now, Jesus, I don't need a theological lesson. If you'd just been here, right? Verse 25. And Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection. You're waiting for the resurrection in the last day. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And that is so true. When you believe in Jesus Christ, even when you die, you're still alive. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord if you have the Lord in your life, right? And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? She said unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God. I'm not sure what you're getting at, not sure what you're saying. I'm very confused right now. I'm very upset. I'm grieving. But I know you're the Son of God. All right? And when she had so said, she went her way, called Mary his sister secretly, saying, the Master's come and he calls for you. And then, verse 29, and then when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary her sister secretly, saying, the Master come and called for thee. As soon as she heard that, she rose quickly and came unto him. Now, Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha met him. So after Martha ran home, he stayed put. And then Mary jumps up and goes and catches up with him at that same place. All right? Then, verse 31, the Jews then, which were with her in the house and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily. Remember, Martha talked to her secretly. They just saw her jump up and run out of the house. All right? Hastily, and went out, followed her, saying she goes to the grave to weep there. So everybody's following her. And so they could all cry together, all right? And so when Mary was come to Jesus, where Jesus was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying, this is her version of blaming God. If you'd been here, but you weren't here, if you had not delayed 2 days, which wasn't true, but if you hadn't, then my brother wouldn't have died. Side note, the whole waiting 4 days, the Jews believed, that's why they waked. They set up with them, hung out in the house with them. The Jews believed the spirit hung around the dead body for 3 days. They just believed that. And that the spirit would not go to paradise until the 3 days were up. That was oral tradition. That was their oral Torah. There's no scripture for that, but that's what the culture believed. So Jesus waited 4 days, and that makes Lazarus dead. Not just dead, he's dead because now the spirit's gone. All right, got it? All right, so, and when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, where have you laid him? And they said to him, Lord, come see. And I'm so glad that the people who chopped our Bible up into verses to make it easier for us to memorize, I'm so glad they dedicated 2 words to its own verse. And Jesus wept. See, he knew what he's going to do. But he entered into her pain, into their pain. He willfully took upon himself, knowing what he was going to do, but he felt what they felt because he cares what you feel. Jesus wept. Then said the Jews, behold how he loved him. Some of them said, this is the crowd's version of blaming God. Mary had hers, Martha had hers. Now the crowd said, could not this man who have opened the eyes of the blind, they still were blown away by a man born blind, could see, open the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died? See, he could have healed him. We're not talking about a blind person from birth. We're not talking about a lame guy that had suffered for 38 years. We're talking about a guy that got COVID. Okay, I have no idea, all right? We're talking about a guy who just got sick. So, Jesus therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave and a stone laid upon it, very common in that area. Jesus was put in one himself. All right, verse 39. Jesus said, take away the stone. And Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saying to him, Lord, by this time he stinketh. This is just, we don't want to do this. I mean, part of the reason they thought the spirit doesn't hang around the body anymore because on day 4 it really starts to decay. Okay, and so that's what they judged there. Okay, the spirit's still here. All right, but he's saying no, the decaying process has already started because he's been dead for 4 days. He entered into their pain. He feels what they felt. He will enter into your pain. He knows that you're hurting. I don't know if it's financial. I don't know if it's your money or relationship or financial and money. I did it again, redundant. But I don't know if it's a relationship or your health or you've actually lost somebody. He embraces your grief. And then Jesus said, said I not unto thee, if thou wouldst believe, thou shouldst see the glory of God. You're about to see something, and it will glorify God. I know you've got pain. I felt your pain. I embraced your pain with you. But you're about to see something that no one else has ever seen. Look at verse 41. He said, then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou heardest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. You can't get any more blatant than this, that, wait a minute, I know I've said I'm the Son of God. I know I said that God sent me, but now I'm doing an open prayer, and I am talking directly to God, and you're about to prove who I am. And that's the glory of God. And when he thus spoke, and he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. And his face was bound about with a napkin. And Jesus said unto them, loose him and let him go. What would you do? I would be a little bit freaked out. But I'd be a whole bunch impressed that this is the Son of God. But there's two reactions. Look at the next verse. Many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. That's what I'd have done. If a guy who said, I'm the Son of God, I'm the Messiah, I am, I've told the Jews that, and they tried to stop, I've told everybody, it's pretty plain now, just because of the works I do, that should be enough signs to prove to you who I am, all right? And when he raises the dead, I mean the progression, water to wine, feed 5,000, heal a lame man, heal a blind man, now you're raising the dead, I'm like, it's him. There's no question, right? That's the option that most people do. But here's option number 2. Look at verse. But some of them went their way to the Pharisees and told them the things Jesus had done. They just saw a guy who's been dead 4 days. And by Jewish standards, he was dead. They just saw him rise from the dead. And they can't wait to get back to tell the Pharisees? 2 possibilities. Hey guys, maybe you ought to reconsider that this is the Messiah because he just raised the dead. This ain't no parlor trick. This ain't some magic medicine thing. He just raised the dead. You want to reconsider? Or they can't wait to get back and say, you're going to have to do something about him. Now he's raising the dead. They're willfully blind. And people get that way to this day. Last verse. They gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees of council and said, what do we? And that's the question we all got to ask. What do I do with Jesus? Will you either believe on him for every aspect of your life, for your salvation, for your finances, for your health, for your relationships? You either believe on him that he can enter into my pain, he feels what I feel, and there can be a gain. Somebody's watching. Or we can be willfully blind that no, none of this counts. I just got to go through it and God doesn't care. That's willfully blind. What do we? And I ask you, in your pain, what are you going to do? Willfully blind that no, Jesus isn't, he can't get any glory from this. All things don't work together for good. Or you're going to believe all things work together for good and God will. He knows what I'm feeling. He weeps with me. He cares. But yes, your pain and suffering can have a purpose. Father, we ask that you'd help us to make application to our lives. For that thing that we are going through, or maybe the thing that we will go through. Help us to realize that you willingly embrace it with us, enter into our pain, feel our pain. Whether it's a material problem, a physical problem, a mental problem, a relationship problem. Help us to realize you as that light of the world that's in us. Feel what we're feeling. And you care. And you will get glory from it. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Stand, please. Heads bowed, eyes closed, no one looking around.